It is a Saturday night. You are standing at the kitchen sink, halfway through rinsing the last of the dinner plates, and you hear it. Not a drip, not the faucet. A hard little spray hitting wood somewhere behind the cabinet, and the sound of water landing where water has no business being. You open the cabinet door, and there it is. A pinhole in the copper supply line, no bigger than the tip of a finish nail, throwing a fine stream sideways into the back wall. The wood is already dark. The floor underneath is pooling, and the water meter outside is spinning like it has somewhere to be. Now here is what most folks do. They grab the phone, they search for an emergency plumber, and they start writing checks. The after-hours service call alone runs $150 to $250, and that is just for the truck to show up. The leak repair adds another $150 to $700. If it is a holiday weekend, figure $100 to $500 an hour, and rates can climb past $600. For a hole you could cover with a pencil eraser, that Saturday night can cost you $300 to $800 or more before the floor is even dry. But there is an older way to handle a pinhole like that, a way that costs about $1, uses a scrap of rubber and one metal clamp, and stops the water long enough to take the panic completely off the table. The old folks who came through the hard years kept this fix in a coffee can on the shop shelf, and the only reason most families never learned it is that nobody earns a living teaching you how to stop a leak for $1. There is a great deal of money in the emergency call. There is none in the coffee can. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how that fix works, exactly how to do it, and exactly when it is the right move and when it is not. And the next time a pipe spits in your house at the worst possible hour, you will not be reaching for a phone. I want to be straight with you before I go any further. When a water pipe starts spraying in your house, the modern reflex is panic. You grab a phone, you search for an emergency plumber, you pay whatever the man asks because water is hitting the wall and the meter is running. And that panic, not the leak itself, is usually the most expensive part of the whole night. The after-hours service call alone can start at $150, climb to $250 before anyone touches a wrench, and the actual repair adds another $150 to $700 on top of that. Holiday weekend? Figure $100 to $500 an hour. I have watched folks spend $800 on a pinhole no bigger than the tip of a finish nail. Here is the thing. There is an old emergency fix that uses a scrap of rubber and one metal hose clamp to stop a small leak on a water pipe. Temporarily, honestly, long enough to keep the water off the floor, keep the panic out of your wallet, and give you time to arrange a proper repair with your head on straight and the weekend surcharge off the table. One clamp, $1. A scrap of inner tube free from any junk drawer. Total outlay, about $1 to $2 if you have a little rubber on hand, and under $7 even if you buy everything fresh today. By the end of this video, you will know exactly when this fix works, exactly how to do it step by step, exactly what it costs, and exactly when to quit being proud and call a professional. That is the deal. I am Hal Perkins. I spent a lifetime turning wrenches and fixing what other people threw away. My folks came through years when you did not call a man for the first problem. You stopped the loss, you bought yourself breathing room, and then you did the arithmetic. My father kept every scrap of rubber and every decent clamp in a coffee can on the shelf above his bench, because he knew that a pipe does not care whether it is Tuesday or Christmas Eve. That is the lineage this comes from. Not a miracle, not a shortcut past a code repair. Just the old shop instinct. Stop the water first, then make the proper fix with a clear head and a dry floor. Before I show you what to do, you need to understand why it works, because the why tells you what to expect and what not to expect. A pipe repair clamp, the proper manufactured kind you can buy for $3 to $5, works on a simple principle. A metal band wraps around the pipe and creates circumferential force, and a thick rubber gasket sitting between the band and the pipe gets squeezed so hard it deforms right into the hole. The rubber is not gluing anything. It is not melting into the pipe. It is being forced into the defect by pressure from the outside, and as long as that outside pressure exceeds the water pressure inside, the water cannot push past it. The improvised version, a strip of inner tube and a worm drive hose clamp, copies the same mechanism. You are using the clamp to crush flexible rubber against a hard round pipe so that the rubber fills the opening and seals it. On normal household water pressure, which runs about 45 to 60 pounds per square inch for most homes and should never exceed 80, that seal can hold surprisingly well on a small hole. The Environmental Protection Agency recommends incoming pressure in that 45 to 60 range, and anything above 80 should be addressed with a pressure-reducing valve anyway. Now, here is what that tells you. This works best on a small pinhole or a tiny split on a straight, accessible run of rigid copper or galvanized water pipe, a spot you can reach, clean, and fully wrap. It does not work on a joint that has failed, on a pipe that is corroded 3 inches in every direction, on a freeze split that has torn the wall of the pipe wide open, or on anything carrying gas. The principle is sound. The scope is limited. And that honest scope is what makes the fix trustworthy, because you know exactly where you stand. If you are the kind of person who wants to keep the old ways that save real money in a home, subscribe to this channel. I put one of these out regularly, same idea every time. The cheap fix the old folks used, explained plainly, with the dollar figures to prove it. Hit subscribe and let us keep going. Now, here is the fix, step by step, with a price on everything. Let me start with materials, because you need to know what you are reaching for before the water starts. The hero of this fix is one correctly sized worm drive hose clamp. A 2-pack of 1/2 inch to 1 1/4 inch stainless clamps at Ace Hardware runs $1.99, which makes one clamp essentially $1. A single stainless clamp of similar size at Lowe's is $2.18. Either one works. Stainless steel or a corrosion-resistant finish is what you want for plumbing. Avoid cheap bare metal clamps that will rust against a wet pipe. For the rubber, the old way is scrap. A bicycle inner tube from the junk drawer costs nothing. Cut a flat strip wide enough to cover the hole with room to spare on each side. If you do not have one on hand, a basic 20-inch inner tube at any bike shop or department store runs about $4.96, and one tube gives you enough rubber for dozens of future patches, so the per patch cost is pennies. The rubber needs to be thick enough to compress. A standard butyl inner tube is ideal. Do not use thin, brittle plastic, soft foam, or random gasket material that will crumble under pressure. Now let me say something plain about what to avoid, because there is a lot of bad advice floating around. Do not just wrap tape around a leaking pipe and call it fixed. Tape is not a gasket. It does not create the localized compression that forces rubber into a hole. It relies on adhesive that fails when wet, and wrapping layer after layer gives you a thick, soggy bandage, not a seal. The same goes for epoxy putty used alone on a pressurized line. It can help in certain situations, but it is not the same mechanism as a clamp and gasket, and it is often sold as though it is a permanent answer when it is not. What works here is compression, metal band, rubber gasket, pressure on the defect. That is the principle the manufactured repair clamp uses, and it is the principle we are borrowing. If you want the better engineered version, a purpose-built stainless pipe repair clamp for 1/2 inch pipe starts around $3.33 to $5.29 at current supply pricing. Those are designed for exactly this job. a metal sleeve with a built-in rubber gasket and a bolt or two that cinches the whole thing tight. If you have one, use it. If you do not, the inner tube and hose clamp version uses the same physics for less money and works as an honest emergency patch. Write this down. Here are the steps. Step 1. Kill the water. Shut off the home's main water valve before you do anything else. This is the single most important step, and it comes first and slow. If you do not know where your main shutoff is, you need to find it tonight, not the night the pipe goes. It is usually near the water meter, at the point where the service line enters the house. Turn it off completely. The old fix is useless if the pipe is still spraying while you work. Step 2. Drain and calm the line. Open a faucet somewhere in the house. The nearest one is fine, and let the remaining water and pressure bleed out of the pipes. Mop up the area enough that you can see what you are working on. If the water has reached electrical outlets, wiring, or the breaker panel, stop. Do not step into standing water to reach electrical controls. That is a safety rule that does not bend. Dry the area or cut the power from outside the wet zone first. Step 3. Decide whether this leak qualifies. Not every leak earns this fix. Here is the sorting test. If it is a regular pinhole or a very small damaged spot on a straight run of pipe that you can reach and wrap, this is your method. If the leak is at a joint or a fitting, the geometry is wrong for a band clamp and the strategy changes. You need a different approach or a professional. If you see obvious corrosion spreading around the hole, green staining on copper, heavy rust flaking on galvanized, the right answer is to cut out and replace the damaged section. Clamping over active corrosion does not stop the corrosion, it just hides it. Step 4. Clean the pipe better than you think you need to. This is the step most people skip, and it is the step that makes or breaks the seal. Scrape away any rust, corrosion, mineral crust, and dried gunk around the hole. Wipe the pipe clean and dry it thoroughly. Rubber seals against pipe, not against slime. If you skip the cleaning, the rubber cannot make full contact, and the seal will weep. Step 5. Size the clamp, then size the rubber to the clamp. The clamp should span the damage with at least 1 inch of clearance beyond the hole on each side. That is the sizing rule. If the clamp barely reaches, it is too small. If it bottoms out with the screw fully tightened and there is still a gap, it is too large for the pipe. You need one that fits the pipe diameter snugly enough to compress the rubber. Cut the inner tube strip so it sits flat under the band with no folds, no bunching, and no edges sticking out. The patch does not need to be fancy. It needs to be flat, thick enough to compress, and fully covered by the clamp band. Step 6. Center the rubber directly over the hole. Lay the strip flat on the pipe with the middle of the rubber sitting squarely over the defect, then position the clamp over the rubber so the band covers the entire patch. No spiraling, no wrapping the pipe like a mummy. Rubber over the hole, band over the rubber, pressure over the band. That is the whole architecture. Step 7. Tighten hard, but intelligently. Close the clamp and tighten the screw until the seep stops. You are not trying to crush the pipe. You are trying to seat that rubber so it fills the defect completely. A nut driver or a screwdriver gives you finer control than pliers. Tighten, check, tighten a little more, check again. If the clamp bottoms out, the screw is fully tight and the band has closed as far as it goes, and the leak remains, the sizing is wrong, the rubber is not thick enough, or the damage is beyond what this fix can handle. Step 8. Restore the water slowly and inspect immediately. Turn the main valve back on gradually, not all at once, and go straight to the patch. Watch it. If it is dry, good. Check it again in an hour. Check it again the next morning. Check it daily for the next several days. This is not set it and forget it. This is stop the flood, Then watch it like a hawk until the permanent repair happens. That daily check is part of the method. Now, the old folks did not have a shelf of packaged pipe repair clamps, but they had the same logic underneath. Worm drive hose clamps were patented in 1921. The idea of a metal band and a resilient gasket squeezed around a pipe shows up in formal pipe repair patents by the late 1950s. So the repair clamp you can buy today at the hardware store is the polished, purpose-built version of a principle that was already living in workshops and farmhouses long before that. The salvage rubber, the metal band, stop the loss. That is old shop sense. And it is the same country logic whether it is 1932 or last Saturday. You are not learning a new trick. You are recovering an old one. The compounding value of this fix is not just the one emergency you avoid. It is the household discipline around the pipes. First, know your main shutoff valve and tag it if you have not already. Write its location on a card, tape it inside a cabinet door. Second, inspect your exposed pipes regularly. Once a season is fine. Look for rust, blue-green staining on copper, white mineral crust, dampness, or soft spots. Third, check your water pressure at a hose bib with a $5 gauge. You want 45 to 60 pounds per square inch. If it reads above 80, get a pressure-reducing valve installed because high pressure is what turns a pinhole into a spray. Fourth, if freezing is part of your climate, insulate exposed pipes before winter. Seal air leaks where pipes enter the house, disconnect garden hoses in the fall, and keep vulnerable lines warm enough not to freeze. Fifth, if your home still has aging galvanized pipe, and many homes built before 1960 do both, use this patch only as breathing room while you plan real replacement. Galvanized lines rarely last more than about 5 decades once internal corrosion takes hold, and a clamp does not reverse that clock. Let me be honest about what this does and what it does not do. The compression seal principle is strong. Purpose-built repair clamps are designed and sold specifically for pinholes and small abrasions on rigid pipe, and multiple manufacturers teach that method. The improvised inner tube version is credible because it copies the same mechanism, but it is not engineered, pressure-rated, or code-approved in the way a manufactured clamp or a full solder repair is. Present it to yourself the way I am presenting it to you. A temporary household stopgap that stops the water, stops the panic, and buys you time to do the job right. It works best on small, localized leaks on straight pipe. It is weaker or flat-out inappropriate for leaks at joints, for widespread corrosion, for multiple pinholes clustered together, for freeze splits that have torn the pipe open, or for pipe runs hidden inside walls where you cannot inspect the patch. If a galvanized line is visibly rotting, the patch buys you time. It does not buy you innocence. The corrosion keeps spreading underneath, and the honest answer is replacement planned on your schedule, not the pipes. When to call a professional? If the damage is larger than a small pinhole, if the pipe is at a fitting or joint, if you see corrosion spreading, if the patch will not seal after a properly sized clamp is fully tightened, if the leak is in a wall or ceiling where you cannot monitor it, or if you have any doubt about what is in the pipe. And that last one matters most. This fix is for water pipes. If there is any chance the leaking line is gas, or if you smell sulfur, rotten eggs, or anything that is not just water, leave the house, get everyone out, and call 911 and your gas utility. Do not hunt for the source. Do not flip switches. Do not operate valves. Gas is not a do-it-yourself problem, ever. If water is near electrical equipment, follow the plain safety rule. Do not stand in water to reach the breaker. Dry the area or shut the power from outside the wet zone. And because this patch is temporary, the safest ending is always the same. Once the leak is stopped, schedule the proper repair. Now I want to take a moment because here is where it all comes together. Look at what we have walked through. One hose clamp, about $1 from a two-pack, a scrap of inner tube rubber free from the drawer, a method that copies the same physics as a manufactured repair clamp, metal band, rubber gasket, compression over the defect, a fix that works on a small pinhole on a straight run of accessible rigid pipe that holds on normal household pressure, and that gives you the time to arrange a real repair without $150 leaving your pocket before anyone has even looked at the pipe. The scope is honest: emergency temporary, small leaks, rigid pipe, and you watch it every day until the permanent work is done. The honest math is plain. Put it on the pad. One clamp from a $1.99 two-pack, call it $1. Scrap inner tube rubber, effectively free. Your total for the emergency patch, about $1. If you have no scrap rubber and you buy a new inner tube for $4.96 and you buy a single clamp at Lowe's for $2.18, your total is about $7.14. And the inner tube gives you enough rubber for years of future patches, so the real per patch cost is still just the clamp. On the other side of the pad, write down what the panic costs. An ordinary plumbing repair runs $182 to $500. The service call fee alone runs $150 to $250. Leak repairs specifically run $150 to $700. Emergency plumbers charge $100 to $500 per hour, and holiday rates can hit $600. So the honest line is not that a clamp replaces a plumber. The honest line is that a $1 emergency patch can keep a $300 to $900 panic expense from hitting your checking account tonight. You still make the proper repair. You just make it on your terms, in your time, at the regular rate. There is no money in teaching a careful homeowner how to stop a pinhole leak with salvage rubber and a clamp they can keep in a drawer. There is a great deal of money in the weekend emergency call, in the special kit on the shelf at the hardware store, in the rush visit, and in the panic that makes a person say yes to whatever number is written on the clipboard before they have dried the floor. That is not a conspiracy. It is plainer than that. When a simple skill keeps money in your pocket, nobody has much financial reason to advertise it, so the knowledge fades. The coffee can with the clamps and the rubber disappears from the shelf above the bench, and the bill stays. You can be the one who never paid that bill, at least not at midnight on a Saturday with the water still running. This was never really about a clamp. It was about whether the house depends entirely on the store and the truck rolling up, or whether the person living in it knows how to stop a loss first, buy time, and then make the proper decision with a dry floor and a clear head. That is pure self-reliance. That is the way the old folks ran a household. Not reckless. They called the man when the man was needed. But they did not call the man for the first problem. They stopped the bleeding, they did the arithmetic, and they handled what they could handle. Here is what I want you to do tonight. Go find your main water shutoff valve. Write its location on a card and put that card where you will see it. Then take a coffee can or a small box and put 2 correctly sized hose clamps, a scrap of inner tube or a strip of thick rubber, a rag, and a nut driver inside it. Put it on a shelf where you can reach it in the dark. That kit costs you under $5, and it is ready the night you need it. This week, walk the house and inspect every exposed supply line you can see, under sinks, in the basement, in the utility room. Look at the joints, look for staining, look for dampness, pay special attention to old galvanized pipe and to any place where copper meets galvanized, because that transition corrodes. This month, buy a $5 pressure gauge at any hardware store, screw it onto a hose bib, and check your water pressure. If it reads above 80 pounds per square inch, deal with it. High pressure is the silent partner behind most pinhole leaks. This season, before the cold comes, insulate any exposed pipe in unheated spaces. Seal exterior air gaps where pipes pass through the wall, and disconnect your garden hoses. A frozen pipe does not care how good your clamp is. Now, two things before I go. First, what is the one repair you got tired of paying somebody else to do? The one where you finally said, I can handle this myself, and you did? I want to hear that. Second, if your father or your grandfather had a stop-the-loss shop trick, the thing he did before the real repair, the way he kept something running that should have quit years ago, write it below. These little inherited methods disappear when nobody puts them down on paper. I read every single one. Next time, same principle, different problem, same low-cost fix. The cheap old method that stops a draft before it becomes a heating bill? Subscribe so you do not miss it. Until then, find that shut-off valve tonight, put a clamp and a scrap of rubber in a can on the shelf, and know that the next time a pipe spits in this house, you are not reaching for a phone. You are reaching for that can. That is how the careful old folks kept a home running without owing anybody a dime. That is how it is still done in any home that remembers.